Namaste. Welcome to the Happy Jack Yoga Podcast. I'm Happy Jack, live from Anaheim, California, USA. And I'm here live with,
Happy Hannah, always at the headquarters in Bracebridge, Ontario, Canada.
yeah, I'll be back there tonight. Looking forward to heading home. Um, yeah, there's no place like home. That's a good feeling. There's no place like home. Heading home soon, but yeah, we just had a few past days with a training with Tony, and it was really special because normally, I mean, for the last several years, I've been serving in a role as a trainer. So kind of always there, working or serving, and which is beautiful and amazing. But this was 4 days where we got to be students. So just to be students and to receive and to, it's a different perspective. And so I feel like here in this community with Happy Jack Yoga, I feel like actually, Hanna, when I'm on calls with you, I feel like I get to be a student or a client of a therapy session, kind of. But it's important, like to have that dialogue, that reciprocation. Sometimes we're giving, and sometimes we're receiving, and that's a beautiful experience. And actually, there was a nice story that was shared because sometimes as yoga teachers, many of us here are yoga teachers. We might feel that like Rita out in South Africa doing beautiful work, working with her community, and some of us might feel at times that we're not reaching as many people as we could. Perhaps we compare to others. And there's this great story. There's a little boy, and he was on the beach. And because on the beach, all these starfish had been washed by the tide up onto the beach, and they were kind of stranded. And so there was thousands of starfish. And so this boy was just like walking along the beach and picking up the starfish and throwing them back in the ocean, one at a time. Just pick it up, throw it back in. And then an adult came along, and in the adult's wisdom that we do have as adults, said, "What are you doing? There's thousands of these starfish. You can't possibly save them all. You're wasting your time. What are you doing?" And the little boy, the adult said, we can't really make a difference. And the little boy picked up a starfish and tossed it back in the ocean. And he said, "Well, it made a difference to that one." So just this idea, it's not about changing the world. And that's a beautiful, some people may have that, a guy like Tony Robbins does have a vision like that, and he's making a good impact. But we don't all have to change the whole world, but just, knowing, having our community, the people, the place that feels right for us to serve, and finding our niche. And yeah, I just thought that was just like a good reminder.
Yeah, it's like making a difference where you can.
Yeah.
It's not nothing. I think that's a good thing to remember in these times of
Yeah.
unrest, global unrest, I think.
Yeah. And trusting ourselves. That was something I got these past few days. And I know that we get that a lot in this community. It's not just what Hanna shares, in a course. It's not just what somebody else shares on a sharing circle, but it's not if we're the ones who are sharing, but actually hearing other people share and finding commonality and relating to others. And I that's what I found these past few days. One girl stood up and just like in this community was very vulnerable, very real, very honest, and spoke from the heart. And ultimately got to the point, where she had her hand on her heart, and she's just like, I trust myself. I trust myself. And she's like, crying, beautifully, and in her heart, like, I trust myself, like kind of got to that place. Because obviously, 10 minutes before she wasn't really trusting herself. And I felt like that's just a beautiful mantra. I know I often seek externally, like, tell me what to do. Should I do this? Should I do that? I look to you, Hanna. I look to other mentors and people that I trust. And it's good. It's good to seek advice and to educate ourselves and to inform ourselves. But then ultimately, to be able to trust ourselves, to have a mantra like that. And I find that's a big part of what yoga can do for us as well. right? It brings awareness. It brings it brings clarity, really on what matters most, not doing what we should do, not doing what maybe is expected of us, but really being true to ourselves. And so I think anytime we can be in an environment like that is a beautiful opportunity.
Yeah, I love that. The environment is helpful in that it kind of might sometimes help with the automatic kind of negative thinking that the brain produces because it's doing that to keep us safe. So a lot of people that I speak with, they deal with anxiety or, insecurity because it's kind of it's kind of humbling to be a human being and live with the uncertainty of not knowing what's going to
Mhm.
happen next and what the right decision is and what the consequences of maybe if I make this decision what's the fruit that this decision is going to bring or make mature come about. And being in an environment that doesn't buy into the automatic negative thinking or the automatic default network that just kind of keeps turning a way to look at and finding things to worry about. It's
Mhm.
so like, because we do get both internal and external messaging around negativity and worry and overwhelm.
Mhm.
And to counteract that, because sometimes like doing self inquiry can be great, but if it isn't bringing you forward, then it's really good to have a community or environments like that training program that you were in, or obviously a therapist, or a positive yoga community to
Mhm.
keep kind of practicing also the soothing of the anxieties and the worries because they can take over, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and you said in there about, oftentimes we don't know what to expect. That is how life is, right? We don't know what's coming up next. We can plan, we can have goals, we can, do the best we can to walk a certain path, but we can't predict everything. And stretching ourselves out of our comfort zone can be really helpful as well. This there's always, whenever we come together with the trainer group, there's always some kind of a stretch. They call it a stretch activity. And so when we were coming here, we're all flying into LA, and they said, and of course it's sunny here every day. It's sunny, pure sun. And they said, everybody bring a raincoat, bring a whistle, bring a bandana, bring various size Ziploc bags. Like, we had this list, but we don't know what we're supposed to do, right? And so we've got our back, and clothes that can get ruined, clothes that, you can. And so we got all of our gear, backpack and everything. And then it's on day two, and we come down to meet, and it says, okay, everybody get your bandana out, and we blindfold ourselves. So now we're completely blindfolded. And so 68 of us, or however, 62 of us, whatever the number was, we're holding hands, and we get navigated, and we can hear, we're getting, we leave the conference center and we get onto a bus. And this took a while because we're all blindfolded. So now we're sitting on a bus and we're driving for a while. And Tad, the head trainer, he's like, okay, so just so you know, we're going to one of the most dangerous parts of Los Angeles. We're going to the most dangerous parts, but don't worry. We've hired some off-duty police officers, and so they're going to be around. They're going to be there. You've got your whistle. If anything comes up, just blow your whistle. You're going to be fine, I'm sure. But in case anything comes up, you got your whistle. Blow that. And so we're thinking, we're going into the hood, or something to do. Because we learned all these intervention skills, right? So to help people. And so we're thinking we're going to work with homeless people, and we're going to, like, to drug addicts or something. And so we're riding on this bus, and we're not allowed to talk. And so everybody's kind of sitting there, right? We're bouncing around, we're riding for a while because we're in Anaheim. And so apparently we're heading into Los Angeles. And eventually, the bus stops, we get off, make our way off. And then and then eventually like, okay, everybody pull your blindfolds off and we're at Disneyland. So we weren't in the hardest part of Los Angeles, but you could just, we got to talk about it after, like what were people feeling, what were they thinking, and we ended up doing like a really fun team building activity at Disneyland. But you just don't know what to expect, but still, and when we were there, we got put into 10 different teams, and working together and seeing the way people work together under stress, under time, you say under pressure, because we're competing and playfully competing. But it was a really fun. There's so much to be shared about that, but a fun setup that didn't happen.
With Ziploc bags and whatnot, clothes then get ruined. Like they really set you up.
To confuse us. I mean, I actually went as far as like putting on Chat GPT, like what activity could involve Ziploc bags and bandanas and whistle and a rain poncho, even though it's not raining. But I was not able to figure it out.
That's funny.
Yeah, and sometimes, being able to just have fun. Actually, when we did that, we first pulled the blindfold off. I was like teary-eyed because I just felt, well, I've never been to Disney. I think I went to the one in Florida when I was 2 or something. But something I want to do is have more fun, just like have more fun in life. And I thought like, wow, I've been to, Hannah, you and we've been to LA many times. Like, we go to Santa Monica or Venice Beach because that's the yoga areas. And I thought, just never taken the time, and I probably wouldn't do it at this stage of life, but I thought this is cool. Like let's just have fun. Just and yeah, so it's good to do that sometimes and be surprised in that way.
Yeah. And what was your main takeaway from the event, like the blindfold bus ride, taking them
It
like,
reminded my main takeaway, it reminded me of, because I did a program with Tony called Platinum Partnership, like a long time ago, 8 years ago, and it was all about creating magic moments. And I felt like this was a magic moment, and this was, it was unexpected, and it reminded me, Hanna, of what we used to do with our retreats. Like we did that one retreat in Finland, where we didn't tell the students what we're going to do, and we showed up at a rally car track, in the middle of the wilderness in Finland, and we had these amazingly fast, extreme experiences, in the passenger seat of rally cars, and doing different things like that in Mexico and different parts, and it kind of just re-inspired me. We've already got an amazing program set for India. But then it starts thinking like, I promise in India, we're not going to blindfold you and take you to the most dangerous part of Delhi or Mumbai. But it's just like, yeah, what can we create for magic moments? What surprises and it could be at a retreat, but even in our lives, it makes me think, what could I do with my nephews? What could I do with my family? And it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. It's the surprise element more so than, the where you go.
yeah. Yeah, I love that.
So let's see. Stay tuned for those who are coming to India. I'm sure there's going to be so many amazing experiences, and you just never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. The
But
the the retreat center is going to blow our minds, I'm sure.
yeah. And the other thing that was really helpful I found this past weekend was talking about relationships, and not necessarily intimate relationships, but just relationship in general. And because sometimes we have our own models of the world of how things, the best way to do things, how things should be, how things are meant to be. And in relationship, whether it's with a significant other or a parent or a sibling or a coworker, it's like, when there is disagreement, which is inevitable, it's like, what's more important? Do we want to be right, or do we want to be in relationship? Because sometimes, it's not about being right. And even if we may think that we're right, but just this idea of like, what is gonna, what's gonna serve the relationship best. And it could even be, sometimes, my experience, correct me if I'm wrong, Hanna, but oftentimes women, all of us, but and women especially, when you share, you just want to be heard. You want to be listened to. You want to be understood. You don't want to be coached. You don't want to be fixed. And so for us guys, it's helpful to ask that question. Do you want me to just listen, or do you want feedback? And because sometimes there is a time where you're soliciting feedback, but it's a good idea not to offer coaching when it's not requested. Why are you laughing?
I'm laughing because the way you set this up was like, sometimes in relationships, do you want to be right or do you want to be wrong?
No, or do you want to be in relationship?
Oh, those are the two options.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, no, I was just laughing because I was thinking about where you were gonna go with this. But that was a very good insight that we don't have to be right and that it's a good idea to ask if you just really need to be heard, or do you want me to say something about this topic that you're sharing with me?
Hmm. Yeah. And being mindful, and sometimes, or if we make a request, if I make a request to you, I really love this question. There's a question to ask ourselves before we speak to our partner or somebody else, and that is, how can I communicate my needs in a way that empowers my relationship with this person? I thought that was profound. That was powerful. How can I communicate my needs in a way that empowers my relationship with this person? Because sometimes, we criticize. Well, that might somehow meet my needs, but that's not empowering my relationship with the person. Sometimes, we defend ourselves, we, whatever it is, we react without thinking. But it's like, okay, but at the same time, we don't want to just suppress it. So it's like, how can I communicate my needs? Be honest and be real, but sharing in a way that is really going to serve the relationship. So not making the person wrong. Um, I thought that was a good distinction as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I love how you started with the listening, because the listening is what seems to be the hardest part. Because we, especially in relationship, we think we already know the other person so well that we've lost all listening, really. But everyone's a mystery. Everyone always is kind of like describing their inner landscape and their needs. And so it starts with the listening. And then the question that you suggested sounds like like a request that, like, how can I make a request without offending? How
Mhm.
can I how can I ask something that actually builds this relationships and supports it rather than tears it down or creates conflict?
Yeah. And so you said, how do you do it? Do you want me to offer an
Yeah, can you
idea?
make an example?
Yeah. There's actually,
Did I do a good way of requesting this?
yeah, there's 6 steps.
Oh, only six.
Yeah.
Damn.
I've got, of course, I'm just looking at my notes here, and we've got so many notes, and I haven't, it was 7 a.m. On Tuesday morning here, so I haven't digested it all. But I thought, this was these steps. So first, like, say if we want to make a request, and because again, it sometimes we criticize, sometimes we judge, sometimes we blame, do these kind of things. And if we want to do it in an effective, elegant, loving way that actually is going to get results, here's a framework to consider. And of course, you're laughing.
Yeah, because how would I ever remember all the six steps in real?
Well, because well, first, well, like in anything. I'm sure in your therapy you're learning some tools, and then you read them, and then you agree with them, and then you practice them, and maybe you try to memorize them, and then eventually they just become natural. So I'm not saying that when we're going to make a request, we pull out the sheet of paper, um, but it's some ideas, and you might even remember just a couple of the steps. So first saying, like let's just say, um, I'm gonna use an example in my life, like with me and my dad. And so he sometimes will make a comment about the dishes, about not putting them away fast enough. I always wash my dishes, but then I let them dry too long before I put them away. And so so he lets me know. Okay, I'll leave it at that. And so step one, I could say, Dad, I need your help, and just letting him know, I need your help. And then step two, whenever this situation happens, I misinterpret it to mean that, that I'm not good enough, or I just can't meet your expectations. But I know that's not true, because I know that's not who you are. As and it's so saying, so I need your help. Whenever this specific situation happens, I misinterpret it to mean this, but I know it's not true, because I know that's not who you are. But I just need some clarity, about what specifically needs to happen. I appreciate that, and I really need to know what specifically needs to happen. And then saying, like, can I make a request? In the future, I just really appreciate it if you would do this, and would that work for you? So just kind of having a conversation like that. So not like reacting back, but this idea of like, hey, I need your help. I've been making it mean this, but I know and even if it's true that what I'm making it mean is, but it's like, I know that's not true, because it's not who you are. And like, I would really love your help. Can I make a request that we create this system that works for both of us? Something like that, approaching the converse, and we might use bits and pieces of it, but essentially, being able to pause in the moment, not react, and thinking about, coming back to that question, how can I communicate my needs in a way that empowers my relationship with this person?
Yeah, and not make the other person wrong, not create yet another conflict on top of a conflict. I am
Yeah.
sure that's an art, right?
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. And so these are, I mean, it just different ideas. Like, it just made me think, it comes back to yoga. Yoga is about connection. It's about it's about love. It's about community and coming together. And so it's like, how can we, as yogis, as yoga teachers, in any context, not just when we're in a yoga studio, but like when we're having interaction with a parent, when we're, with somebody in our lives, and being able to embody those qualities, and to really think how, if we think about how we speak to each other in this community, right? It's just like uplifting and loving, and like no judgment, no criticism, like just really being here to hold space, being able to bring that into other contexts as well. And I guess I find that's the daily practice, right? Is, by doing the meditation, by doing the yoga, it it creates space. I don't know. It allows for time to take a breath before reacting.
Yeah. And it's almost like a method of communication that is non-violent, because we also in yoga we seek not to, create suffering. We try to minimize suffering. And so with our words, we can really hurt each other, right? And with our attitudes and our behaviors. And though the art is to find a way where you can still express yourself, because you don't want to suppress if there is frustration or conflict, but there's a non-violent way to communicate that we might, learn from this example that you're giving from Tony teachings.
Yeah. and because it's so easy. What I'm learning, is that we're so unique. I mean, in ways we're so similar, humans, and in other ways, like, we're so unique, which is beautiful. And when we can understand and really appreciate that, we're not the center of the universe, and other people are different than us, and when it comes with maturity, like a small child, a toddler, a small kid, they don't have that brain capacity or maturity, and so, it's so easy to have a temper tantrum, even if it's irrational. And one of the things we talked about is these meta programs. And I'm not going to explain it all, but just to give a few examples, like some people are influenced because they're inspired or pulled towards things, and others are influenced by moving away from things. And so for me, I'm inspired, by possibility, by positivity. So I'm a towards person, and towards pleasure, you could say, towards goodness, and other people are inspired away from pain. And so when we speak that way, I could tell, let's say, for example, Hanna, that you want to, speak to me and be like, hey, like, Jack, you should really consider this, because if you don't do it, if you don't do this thing, like, you're gonna have this challenge and this adversity, and but that doesn't move me, because I'm not moved or inspired by avoiding pain. I'm inspired by moving towards positivity, or that kind of thing. So understanding, some people are influenced towards and some away from others. And then another one is internal versus external. Some people, they get their clarity from within, like they trust themselves, and others seek externally for validation, right? Some people just know, they got their intuition, they fully trust themselves, and it's not that one is better than the other. It's just understanding the preference that we have, and some externally. Some are matchers and some are mismatchers, right? A matcher sees, like, commonality. I'm a matcher. I see, like, all the similarity with all of us. And then we may know some people who are mismatchers. Like, they notice the differences. They notice what's not working so well. And both serve, right? It's good to have both on a team, to have both perspectives, to see the commonality, also being able to see the differences. Some people are motivated to take care of their own need, like self versus others, focused on themselves versus focused on others. Hannah, would you guess? Am I focused on self or others?
Uh, probably I could guess.
Yeah, and
I'll
so
leave it to you to decide.
but again, it's not that one is better than the other. Like, it's true, I acknowledge I'm focused on self. It doesn't mean that we don't serve others and we don't positively impact others, but my nature, my preference, it's very easy for me to do self-care. And then, thankfully, that because there's some maturity at this stage of life from that self-care, we love serving others. Other people are just, their nature is to serve others. Like, it's actually harder to make the time for self-care. And it's so easy to lend a hand and to take care of others. Again, it's not that one is better than the other. And so just understanding that, we have these different preferences, and it could be context specific, it could be stage of life specific. So it's not like, it's not like it was in our DNA from birth, and it can evolve. But again, just by understanding this, and again, I know there's a lot, it's not like you have to remember or memorize all of this, but real maybe taking away from this that people are different. And so when we have a conversation, we've done this past few days, we've done, like, so many interventions. Like, we go up, we learn a skill set, or of course, we've known it all, but we get refreshed on a skill set, and then we get paired up and we got to practice doing interventions. and the person is being very difficult, intentionally, and we have to work with them, or we have to simulate leading a team meeting. I'm leading a team meeting of a group of a dozen people, and one person is, their assignment is to be really disruptive, and I need to be able to hold the team together and make sure that everybody feels fully engaged and connected and present while I handle the disruptive person, but still keeping everybody together in the team. Because I mean, these actually kinds of things can happen, and then once you can handle that, you can handle anything. But it's like knowing it's having these tools and to be able to understand the person. And something I realized these past few days, a lot of the trainers that I'm working with, they are, it's not an, they're different than me. What words should I come up with? Um, there's like an intensity, there's like a specificity, there's like a yeah, where I feel like because of these last few years, at divinity school and at the ashram and in India and in yoga, like I'm very they're just kind of more calm and centered, and so it was a good practice for me that when somebody's being really intense, actually, being able to match their energy, and then guide them back down to like, calm and centered. But anyways, I don't know. It was just a great learning that, people are different. People are unique.
Yeah. And I love how you said that you are different and you are unique. Or
Yeah.
you said people are different. But so what I want to know though, Jack, is that because you're very familiar with all the Tony teachings and the Tony environment. And like you said, you haven't really been in that environment that much in the past. I guess since the pandemic. I guess we taught for Tony once during the pandemic, but like a couple of years that you've been out of that mix. What is it like? What do you notice about yourself now versus then? Like what is the, can you speak more about your like mindset and how you are? Because in the past, I feel like you worked really hard and to learn all the things that they teach and to master it and to create relationship with the different people in the Tony system.
Mm.
And now I feel like you have a completely different paradigm from which you operate.
Yeah. Completely different. And I would answer that by saying, I feel like I'm finding myself. And I've said this on a few recent podcast episodes or community calls, and it's not like I'm lost or I don't know who I am, but I'm kind of I don't want to say recreating or rediscovering, remembering, you know, how I fit into these different contexts. Like it's almost like being in, Harvard Divinity School for 3 years, or living at the ashram and being with the devotees and the yogis for such an extended period of time. Um, it's that's become my natural home. And so now to be in this environment, which is very unique, but at the same time, like the very empowering. And so I guess like really figuring out like where, yeah, it's kind of like, because I don't want to show up. I don't want to show up, different in every environment. I want to be able to be myself, and I am doing that. And by doing that, which I did these last few days, there are moments too that I feel like, out of place, or it's like, I don't know, this isn't, where's my yogis? Where's the Happy Jack yoga community? Where's the bhakti yogis? Um, but I also don't want to be quick. And Radhanath Swami suggested this to me. He said, whatever decisions or shifts that you make, do it gradually. Take your time. Don't just, shut something off, or close a door on something. But yeah, I feel like figuring out how it all fits together, but I'm okay with it because who, like you say, before I was the guy in the front row with his hand up every time, participating fully on stage. Let's do this, highest energy, biggest energy. And now just being so content, sitting, just sitting back a little bit, still a good seat, taking lots of notes, like really reflecting on it deeply and thinking about it, and not needing to be that guy up on stage, up on center, front and center. Um, and but then I also wonder, I'm in inquiry around, am I sitting on the sidelines? I think there are some areas in life that I'm sitting on the sidelines and I'm not engaging as fully. And so, but Keshava Swami, one of the great spiritual teachers I've been listening to lately, he was talking about, we go through different stages. And if we think about like breathing, right? Breathing, there's like an inhale and a little pause, and then exhale, a little pause and inhale. And life is like that, right? We're not just like holding our breath and straight line through life, but this idea of breathing. And I feel like the few years at Harvard was like a big inhale, right? Like filling up and experiencing and being a student. And I feel like now the rest of 2025 is like the pause and just like reflection and just being and not being so insanely busy. And I feel like next year, 2026, will become, part of the exhale, right? Which is more, sharing, in writing a book, in expressing, in creating. And I feel like that. And then eventually, maybe at the end of maybe 2027, another big inhale begins, learning in some different way. And so I feel like we go through stages, and it sounds weird to say, because in one sense I know exactly who I am, and I'm like so grateful for the path that, the life here. But there is an element of finding myself.
Mm-hmm. That
Yeah.
sounds good. Not like, it doesn't sound like you're searching. It sounds like you have landed, like you're saying, and it sounds like you don't have to prove yourself as much anymore.
Mhm. Yes, that's true. And I'm sure that's in one way that's a positive for sure. Not having to prove myself 100%. And I know that's recognized because like a lot of people here in this environment, they've noticed it, and they say like, yeah. And not that how I was in 2016, 2017, in the early years, where I was like super energetic and bouncing around like super high vibe. Not that that was bad, but it wasn't as matured. It was kind of more, um, yeah, yeah, just like enthusiastic, like just kind of caught up in it all. And so there's more of a maturity now, which is good, as you say. But honestly, I I I do feel that I'm kind of sitting on the side, or it feels to me, maybe I'm wrong, but it feels to me like I'm sitting on the sidelines and I'm missing out on some opportunities for connect, not like, not big opportunities or maybe, but even just for connection and engaging fully in life. So I think maybe that's what I'm dancing with right now, is this idea of, what is the right amount to engage? Because I've been the guy who's all in, overly enthusiastic, and now it's being the guy a little bit on the sidelines and just reflecting and observing and being introspective. And I feel like there's something in between, and I guess it's again going to be context specific, and etc. But if I call myself out, I do feel that there are moments and circumstances where I'm sitting on the sidelines. At least it feels that way to me.
Yeah, because it's new for you. It's new for you to not be in the center, um, kind of in this at the center in the focus of everybody's attention.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I feel like in the past, you really, a lot of your energy was spent in evaluating how internally for you, how
Mhm.
you were doing and what the consequences are of all the things. And now it feels like you went to this event and you learned a lot of things and you received a lot. You had really amazing experiences. Could the event have gone differently? Possible. Could you have had more connection? Maybe, but is the way to create more connection be in the front center with your hand up, or is there other ways you can create connection that are even more fulfilling
Mhm.
and less draining, maybe because it takes a lot of energy to be full energy all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And I mean, the other thing that I felt like just really happy with, is that there was always like a lunch break and a dinner break. And otherwise the program was very full, like from, early morning to late in the evening. We still got, close to an 8 hour sleep, which is not normally the case with Tony, but we still could get that. But otherwise, it's a very full day. And I, knowing my nature, and so every lunch and every dinner, people would go out, like, different people, they would encourage, meet somebody new, go out. Um, but I know all the local restaurants are like, chicken wings and burgers and, stuff that I wouldn't eat. So I went to Whole Foods before and stocked up the little mini fridge here. And so I got basically all of my meals for the whole 4 days. And so for me, knowing that what would serve me the most so that I could be present and be, have energy and be focused was on the lunch breaks and the dinner breaks to come up here to my room and, have a nice healthy meal and take a power nap, get rested, shower, and then go back and ready to go. And I did that. And I know it served me and I wouldn't have it any other way. Um, but I'm also aware that, I missed out on 10 meals, 10 meaningful conversations with different people, so it's like this is where it's like easy, the FOMO, the fear of missing out, or it's like, and but I guess I know that, you know, ultimately what serves most is having the self-care. And
Mhm.
so I opted for that in every case, and 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 I feel amazing. Health wise, like I was always like fully present and energetic. But there is kind of like that. Oh, that what if we should I have done this? Should I have done that?
Yeah. And I guess someone else might say you could have done one or two dinners or lunches with someone,
Mhm.
but maybe that's also kind of takes a lot of effort and energy to organize and participate in that way. So,
And and truly, I just again prioritized sleep. Like getting an eight. I was able to get an 8 hour sleep every night, and do my full yoga, workout, sunshine, fresh air, all the things. So I guess that's where, like in life, it comes down to like, what is our highest values? Is it because even though I missed out on those lunchtime and dinner time conversations, like, oh my goodness, we did dozens of exercises. So in the environment we're connecting with and practicing with and getting to know the people, it's a different environment doing intervention skills versus, sitting and getting to know each other. But that's where we have to, I guess that's how our values show up in our lives. They say if you want to know what you really value, look at your bank account, what you spend your money on, look at your calendar, where you spend your time. And so for me, the fact that like non-negotiable was is getting sleep, and all of my morning rituals, uh, and then being, present for all of the sessions, that was higher priority than socializing outside of the program.
Hmm.
And I guess it's not that one is better than the other, but it's like, what do we value most? What do we prioritize?
Right.
Hmm. So what's going on in Muskoka? I'm gonna be home tonight. You're coming to pick me up at the airport.
Well, Muskoka is, this is an area where there's a lot of trees, gorgeous nature, and lakes. And now is the season where all the trees turn yellow and orange and bright red. And what's been funny in this area for the time you've been gone, it's been super hot. We were in the lake even swimming. Axel, my son, was in the lake last night with friends. So it's like an Indian summer. It's been super hot and gorgeous and like so dreamy. When the trees are golden yellow and the sunlight is golden yellow, it feels like unreal. I've never experienced anything like this. And this is my 8th year here. So I've experienced fall in the past, but this year, because of the heat and the beauty, is just amazing. So welcome back. You're gonna love it when you come back home.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've only been gone 4 days or 5 days, but been swimming every day. And
Yeah.
you could feel the lake getting colder. And, I'll swim every day until a week from today, I leave for India, Tuesday next week. So, I'll swim for the next 7 days. And then when I come home in the winter, keep swimming because me and my brother cut a hole in the ice. But yeah, it's very sattvic, using the Sanskrit term, like being the nature and the healing and the just calmness. And that was cool. I mean, in the interactions I did have with people, it's like you kind of gravitate towards people who are in a similar state. And so I met this girl, Lisbeth. She's Dutch, and she works with horses, and she lives out in the countryside, near our friends in the Netherlands, which, way out in the east. And and we were just like reminiscing about how nice it is, to have the nature and the quiet and be able to look up at the sky and see the stars. And so it is very healing and nourishing to have those spaces.
Yeah, it is.
And
It
of course, if we don't have that in our, if we do live in a city, we can create those sacred spaces in our room, in our home.
Yeah, and in the parks and yes, definitely at home too, but there are some spaces usually even in the cities where you can feel that you're part of nature.
Yeah.
It's really good for stress regulation, which then again in the city might be. I mean, you can have stress anywhere, of course, because it is again internal or external or both. But nature helps regulate the nervous system. And that's why I think we love having pets. Most people love having pets.
Mm. Yeah, there was one of the trainers here, Mark, is blind. He's from Vancouver and he's blind, so he's got a walking stick, and he's got his dog. And it's just so beautiful to have the dog there, kind of walking around and nice energy. And of course, as soon as he walks in, everybody's, you know, there. It really just uplifts the spirits, right? Obviously, Rita, who's just sitting down, she's got her cats. Man, what CC, hello, like goats. We got lots of animal lovers on the call here now, and it does make a difference whether it's animals. That's the cool thing is that we have options, right? It can be animals, it can be nature, it can be the space we create in our homes, it can be the relationships that we choose to cultivate, it can be the books that we decide to read, the podcasts that we listen to, all of these different things. Just finding what is going to create that state of, I mean, ultimately, healing, ease, peace, Ah, it's a nice space.
Yeah, it's a beautiful experience that we can create,
Hmm.
right, for ourselves and others.
Yeah. That's what it's going to be the next, start next week, being back in India. That's one of the things I can't wait for many on the call here to experience it. There really is just nothing like, and again, not that a person has to go to India. It's not the only way, but like finding sometimes just, being able to plug in, having an immersion for a short period, it just, touches us, touches our heart in a certain way that then we can then bring that back. And it's like, okay, well, I know I can't bring the ashram back home to Kent, UK, or to Alabama, or wherever it is we're going. But what did I experience that I can continue to bring, that I can, and what will I prioritize? And I mean, some of us who are getting into these practices, right? And people might think we're crazy. And all this yoga and meditation, and it's a little bit extreme, isn't it? And it's like, I mean, I don't know. Is it extreme? Is it extreme to connect to something greater than ourselves? Is it to me it feels very nourishing, and to spend time, significant time doing that, it makes sense,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and I feel like we all get to go to India with you in a week because you tend to share for, a lot about what it's like and what you're experiencing. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's a gift too that you're taking us all with you.
Yeah, and I'm not shaving my head this time. That was last year's uh, ex
Project,
project. Yeah,
experiment.
yeah, finding balance now, right? Just in that element of finding balance. Um, yeah, but I must say, it's there's no place like home, and that home being Canada, home being Happy Jack Yoga University, this community. It feels good, and yeah, I feel like the best is yet to come. That is the nice thing about aging. Like we can put our focus on, our wrinkles, or our little bit not as strong, or not as this or not as that. Um, but there aging is such a gift, and with the maturity and the where we get to in life, like it's so different than being in our 20s or 30s, or for whatever decade you're in. Look back a couple of decades, and yeah, it's we're in a good place.
Yeah, it's like there's more to love when we evolve and age and mature,
Mhm.
right? Then it's like love is accumulative.
Yeah, and we got planting the seed out there for community. There's no surprise, but this coming December, so one of the two of us here is turning the big 50, and I'll let you guess which one it is. So we gotta celebrate that. How are you preparing for 50, which is still so young?
Yeah, I have a journal, and it's the kind of journal where you can kind of write on top of it, and I put a 50, and then I made a balloon out of the zero, a heart-shaped balloon.
Nice.
And I figured like this I'm building building towards 50 because I think it's like a milestone or um yeah, a fun way to think about life as in, milestone. And then I haven't been able to plan anything because my birthday is December 16th. So it's like a week before Christmas, and I love Christmas and I love being home. But then I don't know what, because on the actual day, I I like to celebrate. Like I find it's like a ritualistic thing. And I love everybody's birthdays, not just mine. I think everyone's birthday is kind of a paradigm shift. I think of it in those terms. So I think it's important to do things you love and celebrate the fact that you're alive on, yeah, on that day. Like we celebrate the fact that we exist on that day in this format, in this life, in this body, in this reality. But so I find it's important that I do things that I love, and I haven't decided what to do then yet. So
Mm.
it's early. It's only October, but I won't throw a party if that's what you mean. I mean, I'll throw a party for myself, but not like a party with
Nothing
people.
big.
Mm.
Yeah. That's great. I mean, it's a big one. Like, I mean, you could say maybe the biggest is like 100th. You know, getting to your 100th is like maybe the biggest. But
Birthday.
I'd say the second biggest one is 50,
Mm.
right? If you think of it that way with numbers for your average human. So it's special. And wow. I mean, yeah, we're excited to celebrate you.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
I'm sure it'll continue for more than a day, I promise.
Yeah, there's going to be like a birthday week.
Yeah, that's your style.
Yes.
Amazing. Well, so happy that we got a chance to check in. It was early here, 7 a.m. in Anaheim, coming off a busy few days. And I haven't had time to reflect and kind of debrief and decompress, but I'm sure more insights will come. Next Tuesday we'll lead the podcast, and then from there I'll head to the airport. So I'm sure more insights will come from the notes and the conversations. Um, but thank you for being here. Huge shout out. We got Cece, Rita, Sue, Pat, Jim, Sarah and George, Tammy, Freddie, Angie, Karen, Amy. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you, Hanna.
Thank you.
And we'll see you this evening. And wishing everybody an amazing, amazing rest of the day. Until we see you then. Namaste.
Namaste.